I'm always jealous of Linda Securest. Come on, I think we're going to... I sometimes say to her, I want your job. She gets to talk to Deepak Chopra and, you know, all these cool people. Sometimes I'll say, well, let me be on the call, you know.
I forget who it was you did join me on.
And then she's traveling, and when she tells you about her adventure, I've already said, okay, I'm meeting you somewhere along the way.
Yes, you are in Michigan.
Yes. Yeah, but maybe
That's
somewhere,
right.
yeah, maybe, anyways, you tell about your story.
The first thing I want to say before I start this is something that, I'm starting my 14th year with the company. I always tell Sharon I never stayed anywhere more than 3 years. So to be in the same, I now find the truth of that story about instead of digging 50 holes that are 10 feet deep, dig one, pick one practice, and so my work has become my spiritual practice. And so what Sharon just read was really a description of my life with this company, is that I am able to dig a well every day and go deeper and deeper. I've done it with you, some of you on the phone, and I feel like I've been blessed often by your presence in my life because we all come together. There's one thread, and since you only get together once every 2 years, but probably on listserv and other ways, is that we get together through the ideal that we serve. We all come together, no matter how many of you that I speak to, you come together because to this natural awakening is to make a difference in the world. That's why you're all here. I hear that from everybody. And then this morning to have talked to Tony and hear her stories come back, it's the feedback. We in the office don't get to hear the things that you hear from your readership and from your advertisers. And so it's music to our ears when we sit and hear you talk about the things that your readers say or your advertisers say about the content. Because we work hard, thanks to Allison and Michelle, I get to work with every month because of the Naples editorial. So thank you, ladies, for support, a lot of support. So is this my...
Yeah, so hit the down one to move forward to slide 2.
Okay, where in the world is Linda? That's something Michelle says almost every month because I've been pretty mobile and I've moved every 2 years since 2009. So it's no wonder she says that, but I'm usually out on some adventure. I was in Alaska for a month last year, spent the summer there in August. So I do bounce around. So I just moved this, but I actually have a name for my travels. Oh, here to that, okay. I have a name for my travels now. I'm now going to be the wellness roadie, and I'm going to start a blog. Yeah, and so push this. My whole life with this company, because of all the different departments, I don't know if you realize the value of whole systems thinking. But when you read our magazine and you look at a feature story and the 8 different departments that come along with it, you're really looking at a whole system for health. From the mental aspect, pets play a big part, your fitness, what you eat, your inspiration. We all know that our spiritual life and our sense of community play a huge part in our health. So we give our readers a whole system look at health, but we also get it because of what we publish. And because I've written about every one of the subjects that are in our magazine every month, it's really made a difference in my life. I mean, that's why I say it's my practice. I don't have to go reading a lot of books or doing a lot of other things to push down. Okay. So we put the pieces together, and just because I do this for the magazine, I'm doing this for my life. So my life has been greatly impacted by Natural Awakenings, as I know that yours has. And In 2010, how many of you were here in 2010, or with the magazine in 2010? I felt the call of the road, and the reason that I did was because I had been writing about sustainability for probably about 6 years in the Naples, and I had written top articles. But I wasn't seeing any evidence of it in our own community of Naples and Fort Myers. And yet I was talking to people nationally. I was interviewing people from California, people from Chicago, and there were things around sustainability that the cities were doing, but I wasn't seeing any evidence. I finally went to Sharon and said, I can't do this for the Naples magazine anymore because it's like smoke and mirrors, and I'm making it sound like there's something happening here, but it's not. I'm going on the road. I want to see what is happening nationwide. So my brother called me from California out of the blue. This is how the universe works. And he said, we're a family of 2 people and we have 4 cars. So we can't possibly drive all these cars. I'm giving you the Ford Explorer, which was his pet. I mean, he had babied that thing forever. And so, but he said, there's one thing. You have to come and get it. And he lives north of Los Angeles. So it's okay, what am I going to do to get across the country? I started asking friends if they wanted to go along with me to fly out. Nobody could go. I said, you know what? I looked at a Natural Awakenings map, and I looked at our publishers on the southern route because I had to go at the end in September. So I looked at the map and I saw all of our publishers from San Diego to Greenville, South Carolina. And the furthest apart any of them were 8 hours. And I said, no problem, I'm doing this. And I made arrangements with each one of them to stop. I started in San Diego. And I did a 10-city tour. So there's where I started. Where's Elaine? Is she here?
Yes, she's here.
She was, but I don't think she's
Oh,
coming today.
she'll be down a little later.
Okay.
Oh, good.
So I started in San Diego. I was in Phoenix, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Oklahoma City. And Tina Hilbert in Oklahoma City is, she and Lynn in Tulsa dragged me all over the place. I told them, I said, use me. I'm coming to your city, so however you can use me, please do. And so Tina put out an issue for October, a sustainable community, a grassroots movement from the soil up, because we went around and saw the people in her community that were really in the grassroots of the movement within. And I had the joy of writing an article for her magazine after I'd been there, and that's just half of the article. So every morning we'd get up and start, and we'd just keep right on going. I'd go see this one and interview this one. So I had Sustainable Oklahoma City was just coming up out of the ground, and we got invited. I say we because a friend of mine finally called me and said, I think I should be going along with you on this trip. So she did fly to San Diego and made the trip with me. And so we went to the Sustainable Oklahoma City first brown bag lunch and listened to them plan on how they were going to make their city one of the sustainable cities. And also to the one of the first natural food markets and cafes there. So there was the first raw food restaurant. Can you imagine in Oklahoma City? So what I did was, I just got out places that I wanted to see, things that I wanted to do, but that was pretty wishful thinking because all I had time for was to go to meet with the publishers in each one of those cities and do with them. We had world cafes. Does everybody know what a world cafe is? We held world cafes, and that's where you get together in a room like this with small tables, and you come up with a theme for your gathering, and then you come up with 3 questions that are pertinent to whatever your theme is, and you gather in small tables, usually only 4 people, and you discuss those questions one at a time, and you keep a little account like we asked you yesterday to do a review. You keep those, and at the end you harvest the answers to the questions and then talk about where do we go from here. So we did these in other communities, and they've just, it was rich. I mean, it was a life-changing experience. And I got to see how much of what was going on in the United States, at least on the southern route anyway, around sustainability. And I came back so hopeful. And I said to my friend Sharon, what I feel like is I just entered a parallel universe. And the people in the parallel universe aren't recruiting people. They're not out there trying to change your mind to get you to come in and live in their universe. They're just holding up a sign that says, we're having a great time over here, and we're learning new things, and why don't you, pique your curiosity and come and join us in our universe. And there were a lot of young people that were in their late 20s, early 30s who were doing this work. And one of the funniest things was I heard this young man kept talking about he was doing all this food preservation. He had a garden in his backyard and he was doing food preservation. He described it, and I finally said to him, so you're talking about canning? yeah, canning. What happened to those old vocabulary words we used to use? He was doing food preservation. So I never got to see those 1,000 places before I died and the best of the road. But this is what I felt another call to the road again. And that's why the Where in the World is Linda trip. So initially, I now say that flexibility is my first name and not my middle name. This was to be the camper that I was going to take on the road. I bought this, and I shared the expense of it with my brother who lives in California, and we just thought, oh, we'll share this. And I was going out on the road on it first, and he was going to give me my training session, spend 2 weeks with me. Well, he's since had some personal issues, and we decided that he was taking the trailer and I'm going on a tent. I'm tenting my way across the USA. Not having to stay. This is up here because I need to do this now. My mother is 87 and she has Alzheimer's. She has dementia. And it's on the downhill slippery slope at this point. And I figure she may have one really good year, and then after that it's going to be anybody's guess. So if I'm going to do my road trip, it has to be now. Because I actually moved. I was living in St. Petersburg, 2.5 hours away, and it got to be too much to make the drive down. Debbie, that's why I left my beautiful condo in St. Pete. I was doing some work for Debbie in Tampa. So I moved so that I could be at just a half an hour away from my mom. And that's my daughter on the left there. So I just left this beautiful tranquility of my condo. I was planning on putting everything in storage and going on the road and then coming back and finding a place to live. That was my plan, until one of my dear friends happened to mention that she and her husband had a house that they were fixing up, and they were going to sell it or they were going to rent it. And I said, this little voice spoke up and said, ask. And I'm arguing with myself, saying, no, that's not my plan. My plan is to put everything in storage and go on the road. But it nudged me again, and I asked her, and she looked at me and she said, why do you want to do this? You're going on the road. I said, I don't know. I'm just telling you, Spirit just said, ask. So I went and looked at the house. It hugged me. And so I went from this in the last week or two to a week of chaos, of nothing but packing. And anybody in here moved recently? Because I know that you do. You know what it's like, don't you? And I couldn't find some of my presentation. I thought I labeled it well, but I didn't. So this was my kitchen, which you could see I couldn't even get to the refrigerator. But here's the dining room now. Things are shaping up, and that's my kitchen. I can actually find things in there now. Only 2 rooms in the house I know where things are, though. So anyhow, I don't know where I'm going, but I can promise myself and all of you for the blog that I'm going to do across the USA, it will not be a boring trip. I had actually pictured myself in an old VW van. If I could have done it that way, I would have. Yeah, that's just the way it felt like I should be doing this, with posters all over it. So I'm putting on my ruby slippers, and there's going to be magic in this trip because this is an interactive trip. I intend to stop in Natural Awakening City. That's the purpose of this. I intend to interact with you, and hopefully you will help by finding me the people in your community that need to be interviewed, so that I can take the interviews and post them up on my blog on a regular basis, so that people can follow the progression of. I want them to see Natural Awakenings in a different kind of light, not just as a print magazine, but really, you know, social media active in that way. And many of you have people in your community that they're not your advertisers, but they are people that shine their lights in their community, in your communities, in many different ways. And they're really people that we need to connect with on a different way and shine a light on what they're doing. So those, just put your thinking caps on. Because my trip was going to start in Alton, Illinois with the camper, and now it's not, it's tenting. I will work my way up through the state of Florida first in the month of August. So all of you Florida publishers, put your thinking caps on. And I look at, I took a map of the Road Atlas, and I don't know if you can see the highlights. I highlighted all of the Natural Awakening cities in there, so I know where it is that I need to be looking at going. So I look at NA as the world of NA as my oyster. Remember when you graduated from college, somebody said, "Oh, the world is your oyster now." And so I'm using the travel guides for campers, and I found this Reader's Digest for ways, once I stop in the city, is that it has a 100-mile radius around the city of things to see, because the last time I didn't get to see anything besides, I take that back, I took a trip to the Grand Canyon. That was the only pleasure trip in 3 weeks that I did, and I was, if anybody hasn't seen that yet, it needs to be on your bucket list. It's just a site that it's hard to even explain, and pictures never do it justice. The other thing I've done is I've connected with the publishing houses that much of, like the corporate office, I get books sent to me every month. Last spring I had a stack, I had 2 stacks about this high from all the publishing houses, the books that they send us to pitch for us to edit and review and interview their authors. So whoever is on my trip, I will be, they'll be feeding me the names of some of the authors that live in those areas that I can have written books that I can actually meet up with, do interviews, do video interviews, and post them on the blog. And my blog will be, a link to my blog will be posted on the corporate website. So, and I'm hoping that you can all put that link onto your website so that people in your communities can get the benefit of that too. And I'm using, oh, these are 2 people, God, I hope I get to meet. Will Allen, everybody knows, I know Chicago, Peggy's not here, his daughter has an urban farm in Chicago, and Will is in somewhere around Milwaukee. I've interviewed him a couple of times for articles. He's an awesome man. And the book, I rarely ever read all of the books that I get. I mean, when I decide on a book that I'm going to pitch to Allison for a list of questions, I usually will read the first couple chapters, maybe I'll go to the back and look in the middle and decide if that's what I'm going to do with it. I started his book, and the Book of Plenty, and I couldn't put them down. I had to read all of them. Has anybody ever read either one of those books? They're really worth your time. So I hope to meet Will, and he's in the Wisconsin area. Plenty people are out in the western part of the U.S. And Richard Louv, Last Child in the Woods, read about him. When I say my work has blessed me with relationships with all of you, it's also blessed me with the people that I interview. And some of them have become friends of mine, where we actually have many conversations on the phone. This is a miracle that I'm standing next to. I just wanted to stand next to her. She had 2 aggressive forms of cancer in her body at the same time and had a 21-month prognosis. And she defied the odds because she had 2 little girls and she didn't want to leave them motherless. And she's in my article on reframing cancer as a preventable disease for the August issue. Kathy, her name is Kathy Barrow, and she has an excellent, excellent book. It's called Eat. And what she did was, she's the one who's responsible for researching the anti-angiogenic foods that are actually, they deter the blood vessel systems that the cancer develop on their own to feed the tumors. A tumor can't live without blood supply, so they develop their own. And there are particular foods which she researched through the University of Wisconsin, I think it was, and found out, and that's what she ate pretty much all of throughout her cancer treatment. She's a remarkable story. She came to Naples. We had Food and Thought had an expo. She just happened to have family. The magic of this business is incredible. I mean, I think you probably see magic every day. But I called her up and I said, Kathy, is there any chance you could come to Naples? And she said, well, what's the date? That was the date before the day she was leaving. She actually left the expo after she spoke and then drove back to Wisconsin. So we've just become great friends. The May article that I wrote on Women Rising, the picture of these 2 women here, that's Laurie McCammon, who wrote the book Enough, and Cheryl Gould on the right, who did a DVD called The Heart to Lead. So The Heart to Lead starts out the women's article in May, and then Laurie I'd interviewed for another article that I've written. So it's not just that I read these books and have conversations with people and never hear from them again. I've got long-term relationships. And Laurie's book, we ended up going to the SAND, Science and Non-Duality Conference, Laurie, Cheryl, and I, last October. And Laurie promoted her book there. Great book, by the way. I am enough, we have enough, we know enough, and we can do what we need to do. And as she is Megan McFeely, I kind of find it interesting. Megan's DVD is in the May Women's story that I wrote. It's actually the ending. And we got to be friends too. I met her at the Gather the Women conference in last October. And she had a challenge for me, and she said, whether you accept it or not, it's up to you. But she knew about my trip, what I had planned. And she said, don't plan the life out of your trip. Don't plan. Just let Spirit call you to where you need to be. So whether she knows it or not, I've got to call her and tell her it's already happening. So after she said that to me, here's what I got as something in an email somebody sent me. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. So my Where in the World is Linda, the Wellness Roadie, that's the basis for it. And I couldn't resist this. I attended a conference in Virginia Beach just this past year. I think it was in July. And when I was leaving the airport, this is down where the luggage is. Here's what's in the airport, in the Virginia Beach airport. And so I had my friend who was taking me to the back to get my plane. I couldn't resist having my picture taken in that. And so after Sharon's, meditation this morning about love, it is, and that's what I hope to be, I feel like that's what my life has come to. And to be able to spread that love and joy in a different way, to come out from behind a computer where I spend most of my time and don't. I make these wonderful relationships on the phone, but now I'm going to have to do it in person. So I really want to hear from all of you, from who you have in mind in your communities, so that I don't want to plan the life out of my trip, but I want to have some kind of a plan. Don't want to just take off. So I think that's it for me. That's it. So I hope you all join me in some way. Thanks, Darrell. I went and did their expo, and I was the keynote speaker for their expo just a couple months ago, wasn't it? March? Seems like it was yesterday. Had a great time. I'll take Dave first. But I was like,
Linda, when's the starting date for the trip?
August.
And do you have a finished date?
No, I'm kind of finished when I'll know that I'm finished.
And can we get a news brief on this, that we can promote the link and get it set up in our markets?
Yeah. Pat suggested that maybe I write, an article that we can put in the magazine, and then that way people can be alerted to following the blog and giving. Then maybe on your websites you could give some kind of notice of, and since you will know ahead of time who we're going to be visiting. I've been working with Maisie. Where's Maisie? There we go. Yeah. I have connected with some women's groups that have thousands of members who are going to be gather the women, the Million Circle. Jean Shinoda Bolin has become a friend of mine, and her Million Circle. Jean Houston, through Social Artistry. I spent a week, 10 days with her in her program. So there are organizations who will be helping us to promote this, and the idea is for us to gain a new audience of readers for the magazine. Paul?
Speaking of which, I was wondering if you had any thoughts or ideas about doing talk at your stops.
Yes, if you can arrange that, I will do that as far as dates are concerned, and then we'll arrange if you can use my services, because I think Darrell Lynn and Scott would attest to I did a talk on trends that I've seen after 14 years of following and writing articles about all these different subjects for so long. I've actually watched trends, and the first one I talk about is massage. When I started writing about it, it was seedy. It was still the truck stop kind of thought about it, and then I just had to laugh because I said to Allison, oh my God, have we come a long way. I wrote an article on medical massage. We've come from parlors to doctors and hospitals. Yeah. Roxanne?
I just wanted to follow up the medical massage. I was talking to some folks at our Lee City Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the healthcare committee, and they're doing a symposium in October about health insurance, ACA, all what's happening.
Oh, wonderful.
And to do promotion, because I'm on the education part of the healthcare committee, they were looking for articles and information. I'm like, I'm doing articles every month. I said, this month we've got one on medical massage. I'm like, oh yeah, send that to us. And the folks on there are,
There's somebody from Texas there in that article.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're in your area or not.
I don't think.
No?
No.
Somebody else raised a hand. Sorry.
Oh, I was wondering if you knew the cities that you were visiting.
I'd have to back up for the map, but I will be putting those out. I will start up I would have originally had to go to Alton, Illinois and start, but now I'm going up Florida and up the coast first before I head inland.
So are you wanting any particular topics like you focused on sustainability before, or is it wide open?
It's wide open, and just look at our magazine and look at our departments. And there's really not much of anything after all these years that I can't talk about, except for healthy pets. My little fuzz ball passed on right before I moved from Spartanburg, and I've been petless, but eventually I'll get another cat. There's somebody else ahead.
I think if we have any more questions, maybe you can...
Thank you.